Hey everyone, my name is Charlie and today I would like to share my August favourites, the books, TV and music that I have enjoyed throughout the month of August. And we are going to begin with the books, and the first of those is The Trouble with Mrs Montgomery Hurst by Katie Lumsden. This is a comedy of manners set in 1841. Please be right. I'm correct. So, the people of Melford are incredibly shocked when they discover that Mr Montgomery Hurst has decided that he is going to marry a woman outside of the county. This is a book that is very reminiscent of specific Victorian writers. I found it incredibly funny. When I read it, I thought that I could see references to Trollope in the style and the way that everything's built upon gossip. Other people have told me that there is something of the Gaskell air to this. Others are saying it's reminiscent of Jane Austen, and I believe that Katie would be happy about all of these things, and I do think that she was inspired by those writers. It very much feels like a Victorian novel that talks about things that the Victorians could not talk about at the time. It feels so episodic, and that was one of the things that I liked, and I remember talking about in my review video, which I will link in the description, was how each chapter felt like it had an ending to it, but it almost felt like a jigsaw puzzle of all these pieces coming together to create this whole. And I liked the various discussions on love and marrying for love over money, or that sort of thing, that was, to me, indicative of a story that was like Trollope, because it is a regular theme throughout his books. The author managed to capture characters incredibly well, but also in a way that the reader could sympathise with them, recognise when they were making mistakes as well, wish for the best of them, and Katie managed to create one of the best cads that I have read. Like one of those characters that you would read in Victorian literature and just hope that they met some sort of grim ending. This is a fantastic novel that just felt like the very essence of summer. It just felt light and funny, and there was this mystery aspect of it. And, you know, it was written by somebody who has a love of Victorian literature and knowledge of the Victorian period, and that just oozed out through the prose. And if Katie were, as I keep saying, just to like maybe write a short story or two in the future about what was going on with these characters, I'll be very happy to see it, because it's just a grand book indeed. Then to move on to something completely different, we have Fall of the Argosi by Sebastien de Castell. De Castell's books are the kind of fantasy fiction that I enjoy. There is an adventure aspect. There's this thing where they're so propulsive. He writes short chapters. He manages to write in a way that it feels as though you can't stop reading. Like every time I start one, it's almost like being on a runaway train, because there's no way of stopping the reading experience and just wanting to know what is going to happen. You jump from one problem to the next with very little time to breathe. And I always think, well, are we going to actually find out what's going on? And I think that it's one of those where you just have to trust the process. And Sebastien de Castell is an author whose works in the past, you know, I had an issue reading the Spellslinger series, but they were very compulsive to read. Not as compulsive as the Greatcoat series, and I've yet to find something by him that I have enjoyed as much as the Greatcoat's books. But Fall of the Argosi was just a spectacular fantasy adventure novel, which sees Farius Parthax stuck in the desert, having killed her mother figure, basically. And the reader's left wondering, well, what's going on there? Because the last book ended with them very much adoring each other, when she comes across this child who's been chased by two beasts that she soon realises are people that have basically become zombies, and then discovers that they have been cursed by something called the Red Scream that doesn't affect this child because he is supposedly deaf and only communicates through sign language, which was a different way of going about things, and I appreciated that De Castell had put that character into here. I just really enjoyed this one, and I am looking forward to getting the final book in this trilogy, and then just reading the rest of De Castell's works that I've missed over the last few years. And then continuing with fantasy, because that just seems to be the mood in at the moment, I had to include this book because I read this 625-page book in 2 days, and that is The Dragon Reborn, which is the third book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I can't really give much of an idea of what this book is about because it might spoil the first two books, but we follow the supporting cast of characters from the first two books. So the first two books were very focused on Rand, and while we did go into other characters' lives and see what was going on with them, this time around Rand was more of a bit part that we just checked into from time to time. And here we got to hear more about Perrin, Matt, Maureen. I still can't get over the fact that Rosamund Pike pronounced this as Maureen because it completely changed my way of looking at that character. This woman had been something of the highfalutin sorceress for me throughout the reading of the first two books, and as soon as she got called Maureen, immediately she turned into somebody's granny. But I like that we were following all these different characters as opposed to Rand, and that is something that I wish when we got to the end we'd focused on them more as opposed to going back and giving him that ending. But otherwise this was incredibly compulsive. I liked seeing the quest within this book and just being with the characters here. And that's something I found with Robert Jordan's books. I care a lot about what's going on with the characters, and they almost trump the story for me. I'm not really here thinking, well, what's going on with the story, because I don't know whether the plot ever actually got to anything in this book. Like, we got told that they were on the quest for something, as in Rand was on a quest for something, and some of them were trying to find Rand, and some of them were trying to investigate corruption within a different part of the world. The storylines did interweave at some point and then break off again. But really, I felt like we were just following the characters, and I suppose, like, are we going to get a load of dense filler books? I don't know. I don't know much about this series. I've heard that from the fourth book onwards, it really comes into its own away from this Lord of the Rings style writing. I really enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to going on with this series. And then let's move on to things that I watched, which aren't necessarily television shows. I'll start with One Piece because that is the most recent one. I started watching the live action version last week on Netflix, and I have found out that BBC iPlayer has now got the first 200 episodes of the anime on there, and I'm going to be watching that soon to see whether I definitely watched it as a child, because I remember it. I worked out that if I were to watch 3 episodes of the anime every day, as I did with Modern Family earlier this year, it will take me exactly 1 year to watch. So I don't know whether I'm going to do that. But again, it suited the mood that I'm in at the moment. I think because we had a few more colder / autumnal feeling days, I was in the mood for fantasy. And so I wanted fantasy adventure with One Piece. Anime always makes me feel nostalgic, so that's one of the reasons that I want to watch that. And it's also a style that I really appreciate. I don't know what it is. It's just, there's something about it that really just gets me. It could just be the nostalgia from watching so much of it when I was a child. But there's just something about that animation style that I particularly enjoy. It feels so weird and wonderful, and it is always an adventure, and that's something that I like with my fantasy, is the adventure aspect. I don't much care for the peril. I don't much care for the peril and the darkness of it. That's why I've avoided the grim dark subsection of fantasy, because I like it to be light, breezy and full of adventure, and that's exactly what I got with this. Sure, it had its grim moments, especially in the live action version, which is rated 15, but for me, the way that it was styled suited my sensibilities. And then I didn't know where to go with this, because as with July, I've been watching a lot of Airline on YouTube again, and I've been avoiding the Booktube content. Otherwise, if we were going to go with Booktube, I've been watching a lot of vlogs this month, but not commenting on them, because it's just been something that when I've been wanting something calm to watch, I feel like I focus on reviews and I have to use a different part of my brain, whereas when I watch someone's reading vlog, I suppose I call it a mindless activity, but I feel like, I don't know whether it's more of a conversation or what it is, but like, I resubscribed to Whitney with WhittyNovels because I didn't realise she'd come back to YouTube, so I've been watching a lot of her vlogs, and I've been watching a lot of Jem's Bookshelves vlogs. I even watched a vlog from BenReadsGood, which I'm pretty sure was an older video. I don't know. Basically, if somebody had a vlog, I was watching it even if I wasn't subscribed to their channel or wasn't interested in the sort of books they were reading. But if we were going for television, then still watching Airline, which again, I watched as a child with my family. And Then Dinner Ladies came back to iPlayer, and so you can bet I rewatched Dinner Ladies again because I've been missing Victoria Wood. Now let's get into the music, and this is our last category because I've not been listening to any podcasts and I only listened to one audiobook, and that was The Dragon Reborn when I was in the bath or I was doing housework or cooking. I would listen to Rosamund Pike narrate this. So in terms of music, we have Hard to Fake It by Saoirse Richardson, and I had this in my liked songs on Spotify. I could not remember having heard it before. It came up when I was driving to work last week, and I was like, I need to know what this song was. There was something about it that I really enjoy. I think I have a problem because every month I'm recommending songs by women that are somewhat indie, somewhat soft-spoken, and always about heartbreak, and I think there is something wrong with me. As somebody who's never been in a relationship, why do I listen to songs about heartbreak so much? I don't have a heart to break. And then we have Pages by Nina Nesbitt. I don't know, this one speaks to me on a different level about being in your late 20s and being worried about what's going on in your life and whether you are as stable as you think you are. You know, you think you've found what you need and you're worried about losing it. I mean, I don't have that sensation yet because I'm now in my early 30s and still living with my parents because Lord knows I can't afford to move out anywhere. Maybe that was one reason, just to find a relationship, just to find somebody who can afford a mortgage, or preferably find somebody who already has their own house that I don't have to worry about. I'm a terrible person, but we knew that already. And then finally we have My One and Only Love, which is John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. I, over the last few years, have discovered an adoration for John Coltrane. It came about because I used to play this Reading for Jazz playlist when I was in the bath. It was just calm, smooth jazz. And it's one of the reasons that John Coltrane gets referenced in Mistakes Me Murdered, because I enjoy this particular song of his so much. And then this came up as a recommendation, and Coltrane with Johnny Hartman singing over it. There's something about that man's voice and Coltrane's playing that just is so evocative and full of feeling and amazing. And, you know, I don't know, I'm listening to a lot of 60s music at the moment because it's ruined my Spotify likes and everything. Like, I'm being told that my liked artists are all these artists from the 60s, half of whom I've never heard of before, because I just stick on the 60s playlist when I get to work and have that as the soundtrack to the shop for the day. But there just seems to be so much feeling within music from the 1960s. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Is it because it's less produced? Is it because it's music that I heard throughout my childhood, so it has more of a significance to me, more memories attached to it? I don't know, but when I listen to this music, it perhaps makes me emote more than other music does. But, you know, I am also a person who loves a good ballad. So that's where we are. But hey, you know, recommend me some music, because we got to move on from this standard that we keep keeping. Anyway, what were some of your favourites from August? I'm talking your books, your TV shows, your songs. Did you happen to listen to a podcast that you could recommend? Then send all recommendations my way. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.